And speaking of scaling down, there's been a mass exodus in some states as families and businesses seek greener pastures. California alone is losing 500,000 residents since the pandemic. To find out what's behind these numbers, we sat down with Siyamak Khorrami to learn more about his new documentary, Leaving California, The Untold Story. Siyamak Khorrami, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you on the show.
Thank you, Tiffany. I'm excited to be here.
And recently, it seems California's population dropped by 700,000 people over 2 years. And you have a new documentary out called Leaving California, The Untold Story. So what did you find in this?
You know, the population, there was actually 700,000 people that left the state. More people left the state than came in. But the population actually dropped by 500,000 people because we had the birth. We had 200,000 births. In this process of going out, and what we did is we went out of the studio. We actually went and met Californians who left. And we interviewed them to find out why they left. And we went one layer deeper to figure out what's the reason behind the reasons. So, for example, if people left for housing costs, we tried to figure out why are the housing costs higher. And then we figured out people have left because of the policies of the state. A lot of times, the issues that people faced, why they're leaving, is connected to the policies that the state has. Or there was a certain law that, for example, there's a law that legalizes theft under $950. When I say legalizes, you can still get in trouble, but you get a ticket. And it doesn't matter how many times you steal, you can keep going back. And each time, if you get caught, you can get a ticket. So there's laws like that that are causing people to get frustrated. Somebody's business gets broken in time after time, and then they decide to leave. But they don't really see that. They just say, okay, it's not safe anymore.
And on that note, it seems another maybe major concern is crime. I was down there recently and nearly got mugged. So what did you find in that aspect?
Oh, wow. Yeah, so the crime is, one thing that's happening is that a lot of the papers in California, they're saying statistics, saying the crime is down. Crime is not up. Statistics are not showing that. But a lot of people don't report the crime anymore because they just, what can you do about it? If you get somebody mugs you and you call the police once and they didn't come or they didn't take it seriously because their hands are tied, the laws doesn't, or if it's a small thing, the laws don't really help them. So then what will happen is you have numbers that are wrong, and average people may not really feel the whole picture unless it happens to you. So when it happens to you, then you start figuring out, oh, wow, this is really bad. Things are getting bad. We talked to some business owners that have been in the process of making this documentary, and very resilient people that have been robbed multiple times. And then at their business, at their home, and it keeps on happening. And what's happened is it's become very brazen now. People are coming into the stores and they just take things, and they even threaten the business owners if they confront them.
And Siyamak, actually, on that note, you're still in California. Do you have any plans on leaving?
Absolutely not. This is a very beautiful state, and I think that once people of California will figure out what's going on, they will make changes here. And even the policymakers, probably, even the same ones, could make changes. And this documentary, Leaving California, could be a path for people to get to see what's going on, to get a good big picture of what's going on in the state.
Sounds like, in a way, the future is still hopeful. There's all those songs about California dreaming. Is that going to become reality again?
I think so. I think if people can, these problems that we have are not very difficult to solve. There just needs to be the will of the leaders to actually solve them, to look at them and say, okay, what we did was wrong. Let's fix this law. Let's fix that law. It's doable.
Well, Siyamak Khorrami, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And if you'd like to watch it, you can find his documentary at epochtimes.com/epochtv. The U.S. could be as close as a month away from a default. That's according to the latest estimates by Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. Here are the details.
Secretary Yellen addressed the $31 trillion debt ceiling in a letter to House Speaker Kevin McCarthy on Monday. Yellen wrote, after reviewing recent federal tax receipts, our best estimate is that we will be unable to continue to satisfy all of the government's obligations by early June, and potentially as early as June 1st, if Congress does not raise or suspend the debt limit before that time. Yellen estimated in January that the Treasury would be able to handle the nation's debt through early June, but she made the latest estimate due to lower than expected tax receipts this spring. House Republicans passed McCarthy's budget proposal last month. It would raise the debt limit by $1.5 trillion. It's enough to carry the government into early 2024, but the increase comes with a number of spending cuts and caps. President Biden has refused to negotiate with Republicans on the proposal, saying raising the debt ceiling should come without any conditions. Yellen says last-minute actions on the debt ceiling risk harming consumer confidence and can cause the country's credit rating to be lowered. She says Congress should protect the faith and credit of the U.S. by acting immediately. McCarthy has repeatedly said raising the debt limit should come with serious discussions about curbing federal deficit spending.
President Biden has summoned the top 4 congressional leaders to the White House next week. This after Secretary Yellen's default warning. Is your money safe at the bank? With all the recent high-profile bank collapses, many are wondering, and the experts say not necessarily. NTD's Chris Beers finds out what you can do to protect yourself.
Some of the biggest bank failures in U.S. history have occurred in just the past 2 months. Many are wondering, is my money safe?
If you're within the bounds of federal deposit insurance protection, your money is safe. In that case, the risk of a bank failure, that's the bank's problem. That's not your problem.
Greg McBride is the chief financial analyst at Bankrate.com. He says the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, or FDIC, insures all deposits for up to $250,000 at FDIC-insured banks. So if you have less than that amount at a bank, that money is safe.
If you have deposits that exceed that federal deposit insurance limit, regardless of how healthy that bank may be, that's a risk you're taking that you're not being compensated for.
Most banks in America are FDIC insured, but not all of them are. This could include foreign banks or credit unions, which are not technically banks and may have different insurance. Be sure to ask your bank if it's FDIC insured, and the FDIC insures you for every account category you have money in. For example, you would be fully insured if you had $250,000 inside an individual account, and a trust account, and a joint account, and a retirement account, all at a single bank. You can also have accounts at multiple banks.
We have always been bank diversified and always kept, our assets in multiple banks at a time, just because things can happen, and it just makes it a little safer.
Rachel McCrary is the CEO of tech startup Gather Labs. She moved her money from First Republic to JP Morgan back in early March. She was one of the startup founders caught up in the early banking crisis.
If you're an early stage company and your assets are frozen and you can't make payroll, this can be detrimental and almost unrecoverable from like an early stage startup perspective.
Another way to protect your money, some banks have special programs that can insure you for well over $250,000.
That is available to larger depositors. If you need over $250,000, have substantially higher limits. We've seen to the tune of $30, $40, $50 million. So there are options for those wealthy folks.
Lawrence Sprung is the founder of Midland Financial. He's been working in finance for 26 years. Sprung says we can find which banks offer this service by going to intrafinetworkdeposits.com. Simply type the name of a financial institution into the search bar and hit enter. Chris Beers, NTD News.
The White House addressed the issues of First Republic Bank yesterday. It says Americans will not have to pay for the mistakes of the severely mismanaged bank. Speaking of surprises, a principal at an elementary school in Virginia got quite the surprise yesterday morning. James Marsh was caught on camera while opening a school trash dumpster. A black bear poked his head out, inches away from him. The two then ran in opposite directions, with the bear heading toward a wooded area. And the encounter did not lead to any reported injuries for Marsh or the bear.
Glad both are safe, but I just wonder how that bear got stuck there.
Indeed, I wonder that too. Authorities have not said how the bear ended up in the dumpster.